Hi, I'm Deanna Springer with fun Stitch It Sisters apron sewing projects by Mary Mulari. First, we'll introduce today's Stitch It Sister guest. You may have tuned in to Sewing with Nancy and watched as Nancy and Mary sewed sweatshirts, appliques, travel accessories, aprons, and more. Welcome to Stitch It Sisters, Mary.
Thanks, Deanna. It's great to be here with Team NZP and Stitch It Sisters. It's time to mix it up and make new, easy, and fun variations in our apron sewing workshop. Today we've got something for guys, gals, and even kids. We'll be sharing several step-by-step techniques for exciting apron transformations.
First, let's take a look at the projects we're making today. Mary has fabulous new variations on her original apron patterns. We'll be featuring Mary's Viola Apron, Crisscross Apron, Little Sister and Brother Apron, and Mary's favorite reversible apron patterns, as well as Clover's double-sided basting tape, Clip and Glide bodkin, and Wonder Clips, along with Schmet's Chrome Universal Needle size 80, a roller foot, a teflon foot, and our BERNINA 850 Overlocker Serger and BERNINA B77 sewing machine. We'll start our apron sewing workshop with Mary's Viola Apron Pattern. All of Mary's original apron patterns are made from two 1-yard cuts of coordinating fabrics, but not this variation, Mary. This is a fat quarter variation.
That's right. We need 5 coordinating fat quarters, and we're going to cut them up and sew them back together to make the front of this apron, or one side. But all of the patterns are also, aprons are reversible. So we need an extra 1-yard piece for the back as well.
Because your aprons are fully lined.
That's right.
Now this is not included in the original instructions. So there's a tip sheet for this.
That's right. This will be included for your viewers, and this will give you the steps that we're going to go through today.
Mm-hmm. Right, so when you purchase your apron bundle or pattern at stitchitsisters.com, we'll include that tip sheet. But we want to talk about the original apron, and then we'll come back to how we made this one.
Right. I have 2 samples here because this pattern offers variations in the tie methods. This necktie has slip knots so that you can adjust the length of the neck straps.
And you've tied, these are 2 separate straps, but you've tied each end to the opposite strap, and it makes a sliding adjustable neckband.
Right, kind of magical. And then the ties at the waist are pretty traditional. They're one side of each fabric. And then just to trim it, I've cut a doily in half here to trim the yoke. And I've also added another portion of that doily to the edge of one pocket. And then on the other pocket, we need to explain the detail that's here. You see that little band cut on the diagonal, and that is a towel holder or a mask holder, either one. And so also included in the pattern are 3 sizes of a face mask, and you can hang that mask on the towel holder or also, so it's there and handy when you want to use it.
And your face masks are also reversible, so you are coordinated.
That's right, not just any old apron.
Right, and you could reverse that as well as you could, you know, either side of the apron is the right side.
Right.
So it's versatile as well as the fabric face mat. I think that's really clever, Mary.
Well, thank you. And then we have another variation underneath this that we can show, and this time we have, well, another of my doilies cut up, but this time we have wider straps, and they cross in the back, and so we'll show you what that looks like. And you can see the reversible side as well of this apron. And I think the name of it, we need to explain that. I chose to name it the Viola Apron in honor of my mother's middle name. And then a very happy surprise, it was also the middle name for Nancy's mother.
Nancy's mother's middle name. So Barbara's middle name is Viola.
Yeah, so it's great to honor both of them.
What a beautiful connection to you and Nancy. Again, it's reversible.
Right.
And either side is great. And I like that there are no ties behind my neck.
Right. This is a feature that many, many people appreciate because it doesn't, there's nothing rubbing on the back of the neck. So this is also one other way to make this apron.
And if you're doing a cookie bake marathon where you're baking all day long, that can start to feel a little bit heavy on the back of my neck. So I really love this crisscross apron version.
Oh, thank you. So now we're going to make the new front, or I guess it's actually just one side of this special apron for today. And we're going to be piecing and making this in steps. And so we're going to combine pairs first of all.
And you didn't just sew fat quarters together.
No.
You've separated them. So.
That's right. And so that fifth fat quarter is actually cut into strips that are 1 3/4 inch wide.
Sure, that's not used anywhere else on the apron.
That's right, and you cut 4 of them, and so you actually have some fabric left over, and 2 are kept separate, and then the other 2 are pieced so that they become one long strip, which then is actually what you'd use vertically here to connect all 4 of the strips.
Sure, so you've just lined up the edges, one vertical and one horizontal, and stitched. So you've just stitched corner to corner, and then you press that open, and then you make that continuous strip.
Yes, this is a particularly nice fabric because you don't really see that seam line in
there.
The
little fun sprinkles just hide that seam.
Right, that's great. So that's how we're going to piece this apron together. So we have, first of all, our 2 pairs of fat quarters, and just to show the back side, this is a great time to serge.
It is. And I have a question for Mary. Did you trim this down to a certain size, or you just cut the selvage?
I just cut the selvage out. Thank you. That is a really good thing to do. Otherwise, it gets to be a problem. So you cut off all the selvage edges on all of the 5 fat quarters.
And we don't have to be too fussy because we're making fabric first, and then we'll have a little bit extra, and you'll see in a little bit. So you don't have to get too fuzzy. The edges don't exactly have to match up.
That's right.
You'll have plenty with
Makes
that
it
fat
more
quarter
interesting.
shape. It does.
Yeah,
You'll see in a bit.
So this is one pair serged together.
And you've just serged that strip to 1 fat quarter, and then pressed it open and serged it to the second fat quarter. Okay.
And the same with this next pair. Same thing. It's easy to do. And I really like the serging because it covers the raw edges for this apron. If it's going to be worn and washed a lot,
that'll hold up. That'll really hold up. And serging is so fast and fun. And I think what you do next is add your strip.
That's right. So next we're going to sew this to one of the pairs.
So this is the one that you've stitched 2 strips into one. That's when the longer strip comes into play now.
Sure. So we're going to then look at the long strip. The first pair, I line up the strip at the very top, and I serge, and as it gets to the bottom, you see that it's longer than it needs to be, but we don't worry about that. We'll just leave it attached.
And
in
that's
this
okay.
way.
We want that. We want that.
We do. Because then we're going to serge on the next pair, and we're going to actually put these kind of out of alignment.
Let's open this up maybe.
Sure. This shows how I've sewn the strips, or serged the strips and the pieces together.
Now it could be one giant square if you lined up your horizontal strips, but
not so attractive when you make it.
Maybe for a pillow, but for an apron.
No.
And look, that makes the top offset, that extra hanging over that you mentioned before.
Right. This is a 3 to 3.5 inches of difference. So that's where you attach the second pair of fat quarters.
Great. And the same thing at the bottom. Of course, you'll have an offset seam here too.
So now to place the pattern, we're going to fold this so that we have a 2-inch difference here. So we don't even want that long vertical seam to be smack dab down the middle. So we're going to fold it this way.
As long as it's straight up and down and not crooked. So this is about 2 inches, and it's about 2 inches at the bottom.
Right. Okay. So our pattern piece goes next on this.
Oh, the one I took away, Mary?
Yes, that's right. We're going to get it back, and we're going to place that on the fold we need to pay a little bit of attention here to make sure that on the back side, you know, we've got enough fabric. But this is how we'll cut this layer of the apron.
And the fold of your apron pattern is right on the fold of that fabric.
Right.
And you've traced this from your original apron pattern.
That's right. Yeah. Just so it's easy for us to use on screen. So that's how you would cut this piece.
So you cut one layer of this and one layer of the reverse side, the reversible side.
That's what we'll look at next.
If you wanted to be really fancy, you could make 2 fat quarter versions, one for the front and one for the back.
You certainly could.
You're the designer, you could.
Lots of options.
If you have lots of fat quarters.
Right. And so we have here next the back piece. And I have one pocket sewn on, and here's my little trick for placing the second pocket. Mostly we mark one layer, and then we're struggling to mark that back layer. We want our pockets to align.
You don't want it crooked.
That's right. So we've got one sewn on, and we've got the other pocket prepared. I have 2 of them here. I can make a choice. So this is all ready to go, but the fastest way to do this is to flip over this side of the apron.
And you've just sewn that one pocket into place.
Right. And now we kind of feel with our fingers to feel where that pocket is underneath.
I can feel the edge of the pocket.
Right, and we're going to place that down, and then we kind of want a little help here, so we might use some of the special tape.
Right, the double-sided basting tape. You could just apply that double-sided basting tape and remove that paper backing and then pin baste it in place. That's just Clover's double-sided basting tape, and you could cut shorter 1-inch little sections and pin that in place. Now, you didn't mark that first. You're just feeling that under edge and placing that.
Yeah, so I feel it's very accurate and pain-free way to get that second pocket
That's a great
in
tip,
alignment.
Because we were always worried about getting both pockets, and you don't need to measure with a ruler or anything, and you're all set. And now let's bring the original apron back.
Okay. We'll look at the details.
And I like how you show on the back, you said you have pocket options and different pocket options. And these are kind of blending in the pockets on the reverse side.
I have to say, Deanna, this is my favorite way to do pockets. If I have one in contrast, that's okay. But I don't want to have 2 bright spots of contrasting color on the hip line. I don't just, I think it's not so flattering maybe. So that's why I would prefer that the pockets blend in. Here I have a towel holder that's a little bit of a contrast detail.
And that's great for your coordinating mask too. That just hooks right over there.
Sure.
But you're right, it's flattering because it blends in. You could make both contrasting pockets, but like Mary said, if you take that, it doesn't keep your eye at the hip line.
Right.
Your eye stays up above at other features of the apron.
That's exactly it. And we have a different tie method on this apron as well.
Let's show that.
And here we have a narrow tie, and this time to make it adjustable in kind of an interesting way, I've added D-rings. And now I can adjust those for my own personal preference in how this apron fits. And so that's yet another way to make this apron.
It's adjustable that way. Now you have this top strap sewn to the top bib, so that's a shoulder strap, and then it attaches with the D-rings to the waist strap. So you still have the crisscross straps without pulling on the back of your neck.
Yeah, that's in what you prefer.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Our all-day baking marathons when we're doing cookie bake at the holidays.
Sure.
The next apron in our apron sewing workshop is Mary's Crisscross Apron Pattern.
Deanna, this has been a really popular pattern, and I'd like to show a variation today. So there's many ways to work with this. This is our original version of the apron. It, again, 2 1-yard pieces. That sort of surprises people in a way. It has bands that are sewn to the top of the apron, and you'll see that the back of it ends up back here on the back. These can be lengthened or shortened depending on fit. So it's, again, a comfortable fit. We do have 2 pockets also, but they kind of are disguised here, except for the one has a little trim on it. So they're slanted so you can get your hands in easily also.
Very nice design.
And so if we flip it over to show the back, you can see how the bands cross back here. And then you can also see the other fabric that we've chosen.
And there's that seam, that front strap, and this is a different pattern piece. That strap pattern piece attaches here.
That's
and that's where you can get that adjustable.
Yeah, that's an important part of this pattern.
Oh, unique.
So we have the whole pattern here featured. This is
a great look at your pattern. Mary, I like to tell, every time we talk about your patterns, we tell people this is a heavier weight paper.
Right.
This is not pattern tissue. This is a nice beefy weight and everything is here. Once you open your pattern, you don't lose pieces. You've printed everything on the pattern.
That's right. Instructions over on that side. Also, I have a list here. I made this apron for, and then you write the names and the dates so you don't forget. But because, again, this is sturdy paper, this will hold up. This is the pocket pattern here, and then ways to vary the sizing of this pattern.
So this is the back strap,
right,
and then the front bib area, and you've utilized every part of the pattern paper to say make the pocket, and there's also a piece down here for...
Oh, this is the band pattern that has 2 different sizes indicated on it, but you know that's something that you can vary also, because you could make this even longer if necessary or much shorter. So there are 2 ways to vary the size.
That's fabulous.
But the problem, Deanna, is that many people say, well, Mary, I'd like to make this larger. I have a sister who needs a larger size apron,
right,
and will it fit? And so my advice always is to do something with a bed sheet. Now that could be a bed sheet with paint on it. It doesn't have to be new and fancy, but we're going to make a test apron, and it's very simple. We're going to cut out 1 layer of the apron, and you know, mostly they're reversible, and then we're going to cut out bands, and you can perhaps see here how I've just basted this together. This isn't
fancy.
Is
a bed sheet. It looks like it's fabric.
I know,
but it's a fancy bed sheet that maybe was a little worn out.
Right. Yeah.
And it, instead of throwing it away, you've repurposed it for a test pattern, because you don't want to cut into your good fabric until you know the fit is right.
Right. That's exactly it. So you now could try this on to see how it fits, and that will tell you, do I need it wider or narrower? This is the pattern as it is. And so I think, though this is an extra step, it's really worthwhile for people to do this, and then you have a way to gauge the size.
Right, and this is what I do for me. I like mine a little bit fuller. So, but I don't necessarily want my straps longer, so I try this on, and I can just remove that basting tape and shorten that strap if I want to.
Right, that's it exactly. So, and then you have a guide. So then you can adjust your pattern on the real fabric that you've paid more money for.
Right, so you've made the adjustments already to this pattern.
That's right.
And you've traced with tissue paper your original paper pattern.
Sure, and so this could be labeled, you know, if this is a special size for someone, you could write that on here. I'm a big fan of notes.
This is Deanna's pattern.
Yeah, that's right. And so we have our 1 yard of fabric, and we're going to need to plan to cut the bands out as well. And here's pocket space, which, so if you don't like such a big pocket, you know what, you can make it smaller. It's up to you.
Right. Maybe I want a slightly smaller pocket to hold my cell phone a little bit more tighter in there.
Right. That's how you do it. And so this pattern is placed on the fold.
And it's just a 1 yard of fabric, like all of your apron patterns, folded wrong sides together, and on the fold is where you've placed the apron.
Right, and of course you'd need 2 pieces of fabric.
This is just, say, the lining side.
Yes, right, yeah.
And we do the same thing on the other side of the fabric.
Right.
But you don't always have to use just fabric.
Exactly. We're going to change our minds, and maybe we're going to use a tablecloth. Now, many times tablecloths offer us a nice, really sturdy type of fabric, and so we're going to do a single layer. apron this time, but this is again really beefier fabric,
Right.
more sturdy fabric.
It's a beautiful tablecloth, and maybe you have a little stain from Easter brunch that you just
Right.
can't take out. Well,
Yeah.
repurpose it for an apron.
So here we have the tip sheet that I've prepared for this pattern using only one layer of fabric.
And this
So-
is a bonus for the Apron Sewing Workshop. So when you head over to stitchitsisters.com, Mary's including the bonus tip sheets with the pattern.
That's right. So this will be a big help to you. So now, you know, tablecloths often, there's a lot of fabric. In fact, there's enough I could cut another apron from this tablecloth. But I've just cut one layer, and to show you how this works, we do serging on this one as well. And here is my band. I've determined that this is as long as it needs to be. And but I serge the ends of my band, this edge, and you can see how at this point I've sewn the band to the top of the apron.
So that's flat construction, a
Right.
classic time-saving tip by our longtime friend Nancy. Do flat construction. So you've seam finished both ends of that and then stitch it together flat.
Right. So now we can proceed in the way that we assemble this apron to stitch the bands to the appropriate. Now here, gets a little tricky because
see it
we have to
taking shape
remember
a little.
to cross
Right.
the
It is the
apron.
crisscross apron
Yeah,
pattern.
right. So I'm going to just pin this. This is how this would be pinned in place. Do you see?
And this is the side seam, the underarm side
Right.
seam. So you're imagining that, so you know the orientation of the apron right now.
and so then these are basted together as well. This is
But
really
you're pin
quick.
basting so that we can open it up and check to make sure we didn't
Oh.
reverse the fabric.
Yeah, that's sometimes a problem. But yeah, testing is always a good idea.
Great
So
advice.
Here is the apron front.
We'll open this up a little bit.
Yeah. And after we've checked to make sure that,
Oh, it looks good.
yeah, I guess I've got the pins in the right place.
So then we'd stitch that.
Yeah, and then it's 2 short seams. And then the last step is, it takes a little time, but it's easy. And we're going to serge around the whole apron. And once you start at one corner, you serge all the way around, and it'll just follow.
It's a continuous loop.
Yeah,
You wouldn't
it's-
think so. You would think
no.
the neck would be a separate seam. But
Yeah.
it's a continuous. That's fun.
Yeah,
That's
it
fun.
is fast. And our last step to finishing the apron is to do serging on this outer edge, and then turn, press, and then top stitch.
So we're using Clover's hot ruler to press under that exact 1/2 inch seam, or a 1/4 inch if you
quarter
wanted
inch,
to,
yeah.
and then press with the heat of an iron, and that'll set. You could even use, say, a tailor's clapper to set that seam, because the next step would be to stitch that.
Right, you'd take it to the sewing machine. And gosh, you'll be surprised at how quick this is. And then at the very end, I kind of like to add my pockets. After I've put the apron on and tried it and decided, where do I want my pockets? Maybe I'd choose a different spot from where the pattern indicates.
Sure, you're not locked into the where the pattern placement says to put the pockets.
And you have access to the fabric when it's a single layer. So that's a kind of a nice final touch for this apron.
Great tip, Mary. And I really like the variation. You don't need to always line the aprons. You can serge the outside edges and just do a flat construction single layer apron. Great
Right.
job.
Thanks.
Next up in our apron sewing workshop is Mary's little sister and brother apron.
That's right. We have 3 variations in style, and the first one is by request. Many people asked for a crisscross for a little girl, and so this is our first sample to look at. It's a little different because the button's in the front, and you see here again I've chosen to do one contrasting pocket and then keeping the other one to match. So the back again is reversible, just like the front. And so let's look at the next apron, because it's a little variation on the theme of fabric. And that is that I made this one from a man's shirt.
You would never know. You would think it's this really nice fabric.
And it is great fabric. And just to show you how this works, it looks a little different from our adult crisscross, but we're going to then button up these bands on the front of the apron, again crossing them.
Let's look at the front.
Sure, and what I did was to use the shirt placket as the center line.
It's still right here, but you've stitched it shut.
Right, so it's not going to be opened. And then from another portion of the buttons, I've just made the pocket.
So that was from the lower men's shirt in the front center placket, and you've just made that into a pocket.
Sure.
Cute, Mary.
Why not? Yeah.
Right.
So I'm going to, again, button this on so it's crossed, and we'll do the same over here.
And you're crisscrossing them.
Yes. And then I have another set of buttons on the back as well, so you can choose to change that
Which
around.
makes it reversible.
Right. And with this, I also, because I had fabric left over, I made a mask.
Oh, sure.
Using the Viola pattern and the smallest size.
Because there are 3 sizes of face mask pattern in your Viola adult pattern.
That's right. So this is all set to go. So let's look next. Now, and here's our mask.
It is. Sure.
Yes. You can see I used another portion of the placket here, and so again reversible. So
and you have one large rectangle pocket on the reverse
This is
side.
what shows on the pattern. Lots of pockets. Kids love pockets.
So the original pattern includes this pocket.
Right.
And then the variation that we're working on today includes the
that's right.
pocket, and you could really tuck this here too.
Sure, it would perhaps stay in place, maybe.
Maybe, or it could scoot away.
Right. So that's the crisscross, and we have yet one other version, and this is from Brand New Fabrics, and this time I chose to do some different button placements. So on one side I have just one button, and on the back I have 2 buttons so that you can vary the size of the bands. Now when the child grows, you could use this as a variation for fitting.
Right, then you just move it down to the second button and you have shorter straps or longer straps.
Sure. Whatever you need.
Again, the original pocket is on the front of this apron.
And then there's a really fun coordinating fabric on the back as well that we really
Girl
like.
power.
Yeah, and also I decided to trim the top of this pocket with a strip of the fabric from the other side for just a little bit of contrast.
And
So
instead of having the pocket hiding, you just have that one horizontal line of like bias binding. Maybe you could use the Clover's bias tape maker and make some binding accent on the top.
sure, that'd be a great idea. So that's one variation. I found that kids really like to have their own aprons. And so the other style in this pattern, I call a classic, like a butcher full-size apron. So here is our first sample of that. Here I have ties just sewn onto this apron. Actually, these are shoelaces. One of my favorite kinds of ties.
What a quick tip.
Yeah.
Instead of cutting fabric strips and sewing them together, you're using colorful shoelaces.
So it saves time, and it's, I think, very practical.
And durable.
Right. And then the back of this, you do what you want if you want a top pocket.
Oh, you moved a center pocket up to the bib area.
Sure. So
Fun.
that's easy. This is a size small. And then we have another version of that here in our stack of aprons. Here we have the Hot Wheels. And this time, though, we have a casing. There's a casing on the side that, so we slide the tie. It's a one continuous tie, and I've used twill tape. And you see those big buttons?
Yes.
You know what those are for?
I know what those are for. When you pull up, it's kind of a stopper. It's a button stopper to stop that twill tape from pulling all the way through.
And the other feature I've added is in the center of the twill tape, I have a little piece of red fabric marking.
When I first saw that, I thought, oh, Mary pieced her twill tape.
Well, you could.
It could hide piecing, but really, you told me that shows the center back, or the center of the strap, the twill tape strap, or a fabric strap, or even the shoelace strap. You could just put a little marking, and you just use some looks like faux suede.
Yes.
That doesn't ravel.
Right. So this is a protective feature, the buttons and then this extra note.
And you sew the buttons on kind of last because you want to insert the twill tape or the ribbon or the shoelace through. So we use Clover's Clip and Glide bodkin.
That is a great tool to help slide that twill tape through the casing.
And youth really like to help us pull those through because that kind of looks like an alligator when you clip it on, and they really enjoy the Clip and Glide bodkin. You just clip that on and then you would feed it through the casing.
Sure. And as you mentioned, the buttons are sewn on last. So
right.
So
because if you sewed the buttons on first, it would pull so
be a
through.
problem. Yeah. So next we look at it, the size medium apron, and this one was cut from a panel.
A fabric panel.
Oh,
now usually we think of a fabric panel for a tummy time quilt or a wall hanging, or a play mat. This one was a play mat, so we could play with our little cars on the floor. But you've used it for an apron.
And it's a single layer because it's a heavier fabric.
It's a twill.
Right, and you can see the serging here and then top stitching. And here are more shoelaces. These are wider, kind of fun. And then I kind of fussy cut the pockets so that
you did. There's the trophy, first place winner in the race. That's really cute. That's a great idea.
And then one more medium size, and this one was a towel that I bought in the Iceland airport.
It's a beautiful towel, Mary. I was so surprised when you told me this was a towel.
And
cute.
Really fun. And again, shoelaces. Obviously, I'm really fond of using them, but I think that they really serve a good purpose. I like making these, but many times I like this as a quick project. And so these sort of features make it so.
This makes it a super quick project, especially this is a kitchen towel. So you use the original side seams and the lower seam of the towel. You didn't modify that at all. You just folded it in half and cut out the pattern. You did have to finish the top and the sides, but how fast. And what fun shoelaces. I'm going to go shoelace shopping after doing our apron sewing workshop.
And then our next one has trim. Sometimes we have a really special nice piece of ribbon or trim, and it's nice to sew across the top of this long strip of pockets.
And you don't sometimes always have yards and yards of a really pretty ribbon. You might have a half a yard. Well, what a great application for that.
And this is another casing, so we have our another color of our clip and slide bodkin, clip and glide. What I like about this too is this smooth and so that it does glide through the
feeds
casing.
in so nicely, and it's flexible and it stays in place. So, and it's nice and long compared to a safety pin where we used to struggle with, and then it would pop open halfway through.
Or catch on threads. Bad things.
Clover, great invention.
Yeah. And then our final is made from laminated fabric. This doesn't ravel. So
this is really fun, Mary.
I finished it off just simply, I did turn under the edges.
I don't see any serging though.
No, I didn't think it needed to be because again, it won't ravel. I just turned, I wanted an edge more than just the flat fabric.
Sure, and it is a cotton fabric. But because it was laminated, it holds the threads from unraveling and coming undone. So you just turn it over, and you didn't turn that over double. That's just a single quarter-inch fold under.
And the presser foot is the key.
That's the key. I'm glad you mentioned that. And I like to use a roller foot a lot. And a roller foot, I'll put it here. The roller foot has little wheels on it that rolls right on top of the fabric. And I know you enjoy using
the Teflon
foot.
Yes, this is both of these are really helpful to sew on these specialty fabrics that could be kind of sticky. And the presser foot doesn't want to advance, and so these will make a great difference.
They glide right on top of this fun fabric, and it's fun to sew with fun fabrics, but the key is the tools. They're using the right tools for the job that makes it easy.
And this time you see I sewed skinny little pockets for some crayons.
Right, you still have your rectangle pocket, but then you did some extra vertical lines. This one's a little bit wider. And then you have little vertical lines where maybe 1.25 inches apart it looks like that you've tucked, and we have some jumbo crayons in there. So cute.
These would be good for candy bars, I think.
Oh, that's great. The candy bar here. You know what? When the chocolate melts, you don't have any chocolate on your fabric apron.
Not a mess. So, and again, twill tape used just to sew on these ties. So another quick apron project.
Very quick apron project, Mary, and it's in the tools. When you're using specialty fabrics, use your specialty needle and your specialty presser feet, and that will make the job easy.
Great.
Next up in our apron sewing workshop is Mary's favorite reversible apron sewing pattern.
That's right. This was the first one that I did, and it's a classic, Deanna. It's for men or women, but we're going to focus today on styling this for men. And to look at the features of this apron, we've got one of the originals here. It has neck bands, and they have Velcro. So that this is an adjustment feature for this apron.
Built-in adjustability.
It's great for wearing it on either side. And the pocket shape is unique because it's cut from the curved area. After you cut off the body of the apron, you have this space. And
so we have a hidden pocket here, but the shape of the pocket is here on the board in that you cut from the curved area.
Right, so it's pretty easy to see. And again, 1 yard for each side of this apron.
Amazing.
But on this particular model, I also used an old tablecloth, and I added some machine embroidery to
a beautiful vintage linen tablecloth like our friend Rita Farrow collects.
Right, right. So this is a fun way to do the other side of the apron.
But you did a little machine embroidery here, a machine embroidered applique.
Yeah.
So vintage to modern. Fun, Mary.
Right. So you can combine lots of features for decorating,
right.
too.
And the back didn't necessarily, the other right side didn't necessarily match the other side, but you tied it in with a kind of
the theme.
Design.
Right. So now we have some challenges with this pattern, though. If we're going to make the pattern for men, we often want to widen the pattern.
Sometimes their chests are broader than ours.
Right. And so we have this first sample of how we've widened the top.
Here, let's bring this back, Mary, and show the original, just to see that we've widened it.
Right.
Look at that.
Yeah,
it's a little bit wider.
Right. Probably about 3 inches altogether.
Sure. And look, your original apron, the straps are out near the edges.
Right.
So the tendency would be...
Move the straps. Now, as you can see, when this apron is on body, we get a problem
because it's a little ill-fitting up here.
Right, and you'll see this on television a lot. You'll see aprons where the straps are sewn on too far away. These straps tend to seek the edge of your neck, and then so there's this big kind of a gap created.
Sure.
Sure. Not attractive. So we're going to fix that first of all by placement, and we'll look at that a little later here with another apron. So here is our pattern. It's the basic, and we have here 2 layers of cotton fabric, and the fold is over on this edge. So it might be kind of a guess, or you might hold this up to the man who's going to wear this apron and decide how wide do you want it. And so this is where you'd normally have it, and so you move it out.
Do a little of Nancy's slide fitting technique.
Right, that's exactly right. And this is an easy pattern to do that with. So that's how we'd widen the pattern. And a lot of people will appreciate that feature. So it's an easy one to cut out and an easy one to sew.
Right, so that's the fix. You just slide it over an even amount on the bottom and the top of the pattern from the folded, and you cut it out.
Sure. And then there are ties also, but I'd like to also show a variation of ties.
Sure.
There's enough fabric to make ties, but I've decided to cut some corners with the next apron that we'll look at. So again, to save time and to use some ribbon.
You could make self-fabric stitched, which I've done. I've made this your favorite apron pattern many times, and I ran through the list on your printed pattern sheet of who I've made this for, and I also write the fabric down.
Oh.
So whether it was a Halloween fabric or whatever. So I just started making another list right next to the original list. So you're making a barbecue one today.
Right, and this is a combination barbecue and patriotic. So again, once again, we have the straps that have Velcro for adjustments.
Now, did you lengthen the original original straps at all for
the
male version?
No, I didn't, because the original straps are quite long. And so I left them the size, and I have tried this one on my husband, and it works for him. So,
well, if it fits Doug, it'll fit Dennis.
Yeah, yeah.
And
so that's,
like you said, it's adjustable.
Right. It can be made longer or shorter. And then, instead of the traditional pocket shape that we have, I used a panel.
So this fabric line has a coordinating fabric panel that you could use for hot pads, making hot pads, which would be great too, because there are many panels, many blocks of this on the one panel, but you've made a pocket.
Sure. And I actually add a little strengthening to it. I have a lightweight interfacing inside here
feel
too.
It in there.
Because if someone's really using a pocket a lot, they'll appreciate that there's an extra layer of strength.
It can tend to stretch out, so that's a great tip.
Yeah.
Put a little bit of strip of interfacing in there, fusible interfacing.
And I make nice long ties too with grosgrain ribbon or twill tape, so you can wind them to tie in the front if you'd like.
Sure,
so,
sort of a restaurant style apron. Wraps around to the front and ties.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. So then we look at the top of the apron again. We're going to open this up.
Oh, great.
And we should show the patriotic side.
The patriotic
That's
side.
For the 4th of July
4th
barbecue.
Of July.
Yeah.
Here's the Memorial Day and Labor Day barbecue.
Sure. So this one now, you notice the ties. Do you see where they're sewn in?
They're in from the edge.
There's about 7 or 8 inches. It can vary. But I've brought these in because this is where the top of the apron will lie flat against the body and it won't gap. And
you won't have that bubble forming.
No.
Because like you said, the straps naturally find your neck width.
Right, yeah.
And then it fits.
And then I added these buttons. Now these are actually cut from deer antlers.
I noticed that, deer antler buttons, little slices.
So this is now what we call the man's restroom feature. So
this was interesting when you showed this to me.
So we're going to bring up the bottom of the apron.
And let's talk about this. You don't always close the bottom.
No, I don't. I serge both edges, and I just leave the bottom edge open. It's easy to pull things right side out. And then I added one of my favorite notions, ponytail elastics.
One of your hair ties, your ponytail.
Yeah, right.
And that's the elastic loop ponytail holders.
So then, for the restroom feature, we're going to bring these up and attach them here temporarily
the
to
apron
the button.
Just became half length.
Right. Yeah. So
and it's out of the way when nature should happen to call.
Right.
And I know that you told me Doug, your husband, asked you to work on a design for this for several years, I think.
Yeah.
Well, Doug's wish came true, Mary. This is a unique feature. And then when you're back to the barbecue, you release.
Yes.
Clever Mary. All of your apron sewing workshop designs and modifications are so clever, and we always enjoy working with you, and we're so glad you were here for Stitch It Sisters today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
I look forward to next time.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed the Stitch It Sisters project. You'll find this pattern, along with a limited number of bundle boxes, at StitchItSisters.com.
Be sure to tune in again for another Stitch It Sisters sewing adventure.
In the meantime, connect with Stitch It Sisters and friends on our social sites. Stitch It Sisters is made possible by BERNINA, Clover, Benartex Fabrics, June Taylor, OESD Oklahoma Embroidery Supply and Design, and ShopNZP.com.
BERNINA, made to create.